Hello and welcome to IB Times TV. I'm Lianna, Brinded, Senior Business Journalist for International Business Times. Joining me now is Ken Olisa. He's the Chairman and Founder of Restoration Partners.
Morning.
Hi, morning.
Hello.
On this cold day. So to kick off, I mean, the tech industry really is tipped to be the saving grace for growth for Britain. What would you say is the tech industry's story behind all this?
Well, the reason it has the chance to be the saving grace is you can go from naught to a very big company employing lots of people and most importantly paying loads of taxes very quickly, whereas most other industries take a lot longer for that to happen. So that's why the tech industry is exciting from a growth perspective. If you're in the tech sector though, there are a few other factors that make it exciting too. The history of our industry is we used to have mainframes and then minis, then PCs, dominated by the Americans, and Brits only tried to catch up all of the time. Now we've got what I call the age of ubiquity, where we've literally got billions of interconnected computers from mobile phones and cameras and GPS systems and so on, all producing information, all making decisions for people to do things in the world, and all capable of being powered by the cloud rather than little computers all over the place. So there's a platform of unprecedented power, which means that anybody, not just those in the USA, can take advantage of it. So you've got the opportunity for fast growth because it's technology, and a particular point in time when there's this vast global computer platform and it's free open season.
Sure. I mean, the industry has rapidly grown in the last 10 years, but with the financial crisis, naturally there's been a lot of challenges that have risen from that for tech financing, funding, M&A. Where have you seen the trends in that, and what have been the inherent, I suppose, hurdles to overcome for the industry?
Well, the big trend, of course, is just, as I just said, in ubiquity, this production of lots and lots of computers. So we now do things with cameras or mobile phones or stereos at home that were never imaginable 20 or 30 years ago because they've got chips in them, washing machines, fridges, and so on. Everywhere. I was hearing the other day that ARM, the UK company, has now shipped more of its design chips than Intel in its lifetime. So we've seen this fundamental change of this vast production of computers. And then the compute power up in the cloud means that you can do things with that data that you could never imagine before. So the whole cycle has changed fundamentally. The challenge now for the industry is to be able to get enough capital to feed that potential growth. And those of us in the sector, in the financial services, trying to find the money and the support for companies, that is our big challenge today.
Sure. And when it comes to finding that capital and fundraising and so forth, how have you seen the shift in terms of the companies looking for that? Have they moved to maybe the non-traditional sectors like the banks to maybe more boutique places like yourself?
Well, what's happened is it used to be a venture capital driven industry. So government put small amounts of money into universities to get ideas started. Venture capitalists then descended on them, put money in and grew the businesses. But the huge volumes of venture capital were in America, not outside America. So guess what? That American model prevailed. The venture capital industry hasn't really worked though. So we've seen a serious shrinking of the number of venture capitalists and the amount of money that they've got available. And so yes, companies have had to look elsewhere to find money. The good news though, back to the earlier points I was making about the age of ubiquity, people don't now need anything like as much money as they used to before. For $1,000 a month you can use a cloud-based computer, say on Amazon Web Services, whereas you would have to spend $100,000 to buy one 5 or 6 years ago. So the economics are changing such that it becomes much more reasonable to raise money from angel investors, from potential public markets and so on. And that's where the big revolution is happening here in the UK. We're now seeing AIM beginning to pick up steam. I hope in the budget we will have seen the announcement that AIM stocks can go into pension funds, personal pension funds, for example, which will add more liquidity into that early stage small company sector. But you know what? Entrepreneurs have always managed to find a way to get their hands on money. And in terms of what people like we do, we solve the other problem that companies have got, which is they often don't have a strategy. They have a passion for their technology, but they're trying to push it into the marketplace. They're not trying to work out what the customers want and where they can take their business. And switching that across so that people then focus on where they're taking their business and therefore how much money do they need for the journey is the kind of job that we do.
Sure. I mean, you've mentioned all the radical changes within the industry, but in terms of very specific trends or places for growth, where would you point those out?
Well, the big one is cloud, because that's just providing applications that have never existed before. The second big one, I think, is in mobile payments. We are shifting as consumers away from going to a bank, coming away from a bank, writing checks, using credit cards, to finding other cleverer online ways of trading. And there's a multiplicity of different online trading, mobile payment sorts of businesses. That is yet to settle, so that's another open season opportunity. The third one, of course, everybody talks about it, but it's really important. With billions of machines producing information, when we talk about big data, we are talking about massive volumes of information, which can then be processed to provide value or leisure services or whatever for people. So those are, I think, are three of the very big trends we see at the moment. The cloud, mobile payments, and then the analysis and use of big data.
Sure. And so going forward, I suppose, whether it's the short to medium term, do you see any key milestones when it comes to whether it's the innovation side of the tech industry and, of course, the financing and, I suppose, the corporate side for those companies?
Well, I think there's still one big problem from an infrastructural perspective in the UK which needs to be solved. The government has put large amounts of money into the banking system, the so-called funding for lending, and it hasn't found its way into small, medium-sized enterprises. We're on a ranty campaign. We've written to the Chancellor and to Vince Cable to say, you know what, instead of trying to get people to pony up their homes to underwrite the loans that they get from the bank, let's switch that into an insurance policy. And we've calculated that if a borrower paid 15% of the amount of money that they borrowed as an insurance policy, there is a profitable insurance business there just underwriting those loans. So we think there's a way of unleashing that debt capital, which is at the moment stuck in the banks, and making it available to small and medium-sized enterprises. And the tech sector, of course, is gagging for that kind of fuel for growth.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And that was Ken Olisa, Chairman and Founder of Restoration Partners.